Hello, beautiful humans. Good morning. Welcome to the Midlife Revolution. I'm Megan Connor. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. We are going to be watching Lori Vallow Daybell's Arizona Pretrial Conference. This is the final conference before she starts jury selection on the 31st of March. So I'm going to give a little bit of a recap. I thought that I would start just a little bit early. The hearing is scheduled to start at 8:15 Arizona time. It's now 8:03 Arizona time. So it's going to be just a little bit before the hearing actually starts. But I wanted to give a little bit of a recap of where we are so far. Welcome back to the channel if you are returning. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. It's good to have you here. I'm Megan Connor, Lori Vallow Daybell's cousin. And I have some family insights and some insights into Lori. I spent a lot of time with her in my growing up years and my young adult years. We did sort of lose contact during her divorce from Joe Ryan, who was her third husband. But I was in close contact with all the Cox family members while they lived here in San Antonio for 10 years. And just started backing away from the family really kind of in the 2017, 2018 time frame. Maybe even a little before that, but I kept track with on social media of everybody up until the day that I saw the Facebook post that Charles had been killed. And that was a day that sort of changed a lot of things in our family. And it's been a crazy experience going through all of this the last 5 years. I can't believe that it's been almost 6 years since this happened. And it's definitely been crazy to go through all of this. So anyway, we are going to recap just a little bit what has been happening in Arizona since Lori arrived. And I went to the court website yesterday just to sort of look through all of the motions, and it's a lot. It's definitely more than I thought was going to be going on in this case. So I'll do a quick recap, and then I'm going to check in with the reporters who are in the courtroom live to see what's going on in the courtroom before the video gets posted. So forgive me for my stumbling over words this morning. I'm still kind of waking up to this part of the morning. I've, done all of my prep and all of that for my day, but was not quite ready to do this, even though it's, a little after 10 o'clock my time. And I've been up for several hours already. I was up very early this morning, but it's never fun to dive into the world of Lori. Let me just tell you that. It requires a certain mindset. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. This helps me as well to go through this with a community of beautiful humans and to not have to go through it alone. So I appreciate it. So Lori arrived in Arizona way back in, what was it? 2023, I believe. And if I'm getting that date wrong, I apologize. Originally, this case was supposed to go to trial back in August of 2024. And there were lots and lots of different delays. Yeah, so she arrived, I guess, January of 24. That's right. So just going through all of these, they deemed the case complex, which gives it some additional protections around the timing of the trial and everything. Lori did not waive her right to a speedy trial. As you probably have heard, if you've been following the case, she's been complaining about the timing of the trial. When she first arrived, well, not when she first arrived, but let's say, as the end of the summer kind of came down to a close, the attorneys that were appointed for her were concerned about the state of her mental health. They were worried that she was not competent to stand trial. And in Arizona, there are only two rules for competency. One is that she has to understand the charges against her, and the other is that she's willing to participate in her defense. Now, I have my speculations that one of the reasons that her attorneys thought she was not competent was because she was not wanting to participate in her defense. We know that when she was on trial in Idaho, she would not allow her defense team to call a single witness or to produce any sort of evidence of her innocence. And I believe that she did not like the way that they sort of threw Chad under the bus in their cross-examination. And so I think she's had beef with attorneys right from the very beginning of this entire saga. And so I think she wanted to represent herself this whole time, but obviously that's not advisable. No attorney is going to tell you that that's a good idea. And I think because Lori was not being cooperative, that's the reason why her attorneys wanted to do a Rule 11 hearing to determine her competency to stand trial. So they went through the Rule 11 process. Lori did not participate in the process. She did not want to be evaluated. She maintained that her mental health was just fine. And so we had to get down to the point where the judge had to order her to participate in the evaluation before she would actually even speak to the evaluator. And she had to speak to 2 different evaluators. She finally did that. She complied and she was deemed competent. And I always have to remind people, because you'll come for me in the comments, mentally competent to stand trial by the state of Arizona's standard are just those 2 things. You have to understand the charges against you, and she is smart enough to understand what she's being charged with. And you have to be willing to participate in your defense. And so she passed those 2 criteria. It doesn't mean she doesn't have a personality disorder. It doesn't mean that she is mentally well. It doesn't mean she's a healthy human being. It just means she meets those 2 criteria. So she was deemed competent. Trial could go forward. She filed a motion to represent herself. The judge had a hearing on that. He questioned her thoroughly by the legal standard to make sure that she understood the implications of representing herself. And she was able to pass that evaluation, that she understood the implications, that it's not necessarily advisable when she represents herself. The judge did say that he reserves the right to take away that ability to represent herself if she doesn't follow the court rules or the procedures, or if she is found in contempt of court, or if she is not acting with decorum, or if she's trying to, preach from the stand or trying to give her own narrative without being questioned by an attorney, etc. So he did reserve the right to take that away from her. Now he says, if he does decide to reassign counsel to her, she can't go back and recall any of those witnesses or retry any of the facts in the case if she gets that taken away from her. So she completely understands. And then she also waives her right to appeal based on ineffective counsel. So we know that there are some consequences for her of choosing to represent herself. She also wanted to be referred to as Daybell. The judge granted that request of her to be referred to as Daybell in the courtroom. And then she put forward what I consider to be sort of a ridiculous motion to dismiss the case that involves the attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux. She argued that her speedy trial rights were being violated, and the judge denied that request. Then she put forward another motion to have both cases dismissed on a different type of speedy trial right violation, or based on a different rule, 8.4 instead of 8.3. And the judge also denied that motion as well. What is before the court this morning is these last couple of motions where Lori had asked for some discovery from the state. She's asking for a very specific video. She was asking for a video not of the interview on the day that Charles was killed. She's asking for an interview that happened prior to this. A couple of months before Charles was killed, they had a disagreement where Lori was dropping JJ off at the school. Charles saw her car was in the parking lot, and she opened the door, Charles opened the door and her purse was there, and he took her purse, allegedly. I think he actually might have even taken the purse to the police station or something of that nature. I don't remember the exact circumstances. It's been too long since I've looked into that. The footage that Lori is looking for is the interview that happened at the police station, where it's Lori, her friend Melanie Gibb, and Tylee. And they're talking about the purse situation. and they're talking about the idea that Charles has submitted her to be evaluated for mental health concerns. There is body cam footage out there of this meeting that happens in the police station. But Lori was asking the state to provide the overhead camera footage that comes from the interview room. Now, I've not seen that footage, and I've looked for it several times. I even had several people comment on the last video from the last hearing that they knew that that footage was out there. I looked in the places that the commenters suggested and could not find it anywhere. I don't think it exists. A lot of times what the officers have said is that sometimes those interview room cameras don't work. And that was what came forward in the trial, was that the interview camera was not on during that time, or it wasn't working during that time. They don't have that footage. That's why they try to always have either the body cam or the overhead camera. They try to do both, but sometimes those overhead cameras aren't turned on or aren't working or something of that nature. So we do have the body cam footage from that interview, but we don't have the overhead camera footage. And actually, I think if I remember correctly, one of the officers testified to that fact in court. Lori insists someone told her that that footage is out there somewhere. So I can't find it anywhere on the web. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, because it's possible that the police have it and they haven't released it. But I don't think that that's the case, because the state has insisted. We've asked everybody for it. It doesn't exist. And that's kind of where it was at the end of the last conference, with the state saying, I believe we've turned over everything. I don't think this video exists, but if it does exist, we will produce it for you. And that's right. Thank you, Paisley Dreams, for reminding me of this. Lori's attorney, or Lori says her attorney showed her a clip of it. So I'm not sure where the confusion is there. Maybe she needs to go back and talk to that attorney and say, hey, where did this come from? If the attorney showed her a clip, it should be in the file. It should be in the discovery file. If Lori can't find it in the discovery file, that's not up to the prosecution. As Lori says, she can figure it out. The other two things that are before the court this morning are the motions from both the defense and the state, each of them wanting to exclude each other's expert witness testimony. So Lori has, let me do this first. The state had one of the officers, Detective Coons, has been on the witness list for a very long time. Just recently, the state designated him as an expert in firearms. Lori objected to that, saying that there wasn't enough time for her to prepare a rebuttal or to interview the expert, and that he's been on the witness list, but he hasn't been designated as an expert. She notes that there's a 30-day window where she has to be notified 30 days in advance if there's going to be an expert witness. So there's that motion. That was before the court. That was what Lori was objecting to last Tuesday. Also last Tuesday, the judge said, is there anything else from the defense? And Lori says, oh, yes, Your Honor, I would like to call an expert witness. Y'all, really? So the judge says, who are you going to call? And she wants to call a computer expert. And the judge says, well, I think that you have to have 30 days notice. I think we're already too late for that, but I'll talk to the state and we will see what the state says. The judge said, if you can hurry up and get the expert testimony or the expert, all of the documents filed for this expert witness by Friday of last week, if the state had time to go over it and prepare a response, then the judge said he would possibly allow that witness. So these are the things that are before the court this morning, just on this pretrial conference. So don't you find it, I don't know, I find it ironic, don't you, that Lori objects to the state because they didn't give enough notice, and then Lori herself calls an expert where she doesn't give enough notice? I mean, this should not surprise any of us at this point. Lori is going to Lori. But anyway, that's just my opinion, is that she's being a little bit, she's being hypocritical. Let's just put it that way. So I'm looking now on the Fox 10 Phoenix site, and basically they've got a video that is set up to go to be posted at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, which is in about 12 minutes. And it says you can stream for live analysis once court is adjourned. But usually Justin Lum does some live reporting from the courtroom, and I'm not seeing that this morning. So usually he gets to court early and then he reports that he's there. He reports who's in the courtroom. But so far, I'm not seeing anything from him. So I'm wondering if he's not going to be reporting live and he's just going to have the camera there in the courtroom. It kind of seems like that's what's happening. I've also looked over at Nate Eaton's reporting to see if he possibly is reporting anything, and I haven't seen anything from him either. I do want to head over to Hidden True Crime real quick and see if there's a possibility that Lauren is in the courtroom this morning. And I know she was there last week for the hearing, but it doesn't look like she's there this morning because I'm not seeing anything from her as well. So I guess I will take some questions from you if you have any about anything leading up to the trial or the hearing. And then I'll keep my eye out for the video to be posted, and we will watch it live together and find out what happens together. So go ahead and call attention to your questions with something visual so that I can see it. And thank you for reminding us of this, Eleanor Nelson. Lauren Matthias's brother did pass away. I believe it was a little more than a week ago. And so I know that she is with her family, or she's definitely processing through. And I know her mother has not been well also. And so just our thoughts and prayers are with her. I've really been thinking of her, and I've texted her a few times just to let her know that I'm thinking of her. It's a sad time for her and her family for sure. I'm going to go ahead and look up Law and Crime Network since you mentioned it, just to see if they're reporting anything yet. I know they probably will go live when the video comes down, but I don't see anything about anyone reporting from the courtroom this morning from Law and Crime Network. But thank you for the heads up on that. So usually, as I said, Justin Lum and Nate Eaton usually are reporting live from the courtroom, and they usually have some information for us as the hearing begins. But so far, I haven't seen anything. So I am going to run back through the chat real quick and just see if there are questions that I need to address or comments. Monty D, be kinder to yourself. You are a beautiful human. Yeah, so Lori is representing herself. However, the judge did assign her 2 advisory council members. So she has 2 attorneys who are helping her to make legal arguments and to file pleadings in the proper way. If you remember, when she first started filing, they were handwritten motions, badly spelled, and some of her arguments were pretty thin, but I think she does have that counsel to help her. She also has a paralegal to help her set up interviews with witnesses, and she will be in street clothing, although last time we learned that there will be a shock vest that she'll be wearing because she will not have shackles on. And the judge also ruled that she could speak from the desk or from the podium, but that she could not approach witnesses to hand exhibits. Her advisory council will be doing that for her. So yeah, she has a lot of help. And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing in her arguments, it sounds a lot like she's getting either some advice or, at least at the very least, a lot of influence from her father, Barry Cox, who has long had a history of thinking that he is above the law He sued the IRS, saying that he didn't owe taxes and that, in fact, nobody should have to pay taxes, saying that the IRS is an illegal organization. And he did serve prison time. So a lot of her legal arguments sound very similar to her father's voice. She uses some flowery language, possibly in an effort to sound more intelligent than she is. And she sort of has this argument that she's really above the law. She thinks the rules don't apply to her. So I agree with this. Kiko Jump says Lori representing herself gives her the opportunity to be a star in her own show. And I think that is absolutely what it is. It is, sorry, excuse me, the Lori show. Eleanor Nelson, I have seen you around a lot, so I thought you already knew a lot about this case. It surprises me to hear that you're doing more digging. What have you found? I'm just interested to know that you didn't know before. Gail Quackenbush, how can Lori now say she knew Tylee killed JJ accidentally and so then took her own life, then say Tylee is away at college, JJ's with a friend while she pockets their disability checks? Well, as you know, Lori's going to say one thing and do another. She's going to believe one thing and then say another. She is the queen of obfuscation. She is the queen of telling her own story, telling people what she thinks they want to hear. We know that she told Charles Vallow's sons that Charles died of a heart attack initially, also said the same thing to Zach Cox, who is Adam's son. And so she told all kinds of different narratives. She told JJ's school that JJ's father had died of a heart attack. And so we know that she's never going to give the straight story. We know she's always been doing one thing and saying another. So this is, again, not surprising. And yes, Shannon, I agree with you. This judge, I think, does really know what's up. Judges typically don't do research into cases or defendants. They only read the motions and the evidence that comes before them. So the judge got to learn the big bombshell in last week's case was that Lori was trying to, the state wanted to rule Tylee Ryan's police interview the day that Charles Vallow was killed as inadmissible due to the hearsay rule. Lori really wanted that testimony to come in because that testimony does paint Charles as the aggressor in this case. And the state, brilliant argument by the state, the attorney Trina Kay, who said, Your Honor, Lori cannot bring this testimony in because she cannot participate in the death of a witness and then benefit from the witness's testimony. And so the judge asked, what that was about. And Trina Kay informed him that there was a trial. She was convicted of unaliving Tylee. And so the judge then said, okay, so this was an adjudicated trial with a jury where she was convicted due to the defendant's own actions is the reason why this defendant or this witness can't appear. And Trina Kay confirmed that is true. So the judge ruled that Tylee's testimony and Alex's testimony later in the police interview room cannot be admitted due to hearsay rules. And I thought that was a big victory. Yes, Reflections of Me, Lori definitely gives off a persona of being superior, and we do see her ego in all of her body language and everything that she does and says. There is a lot to read there. And I actually went back and watched her police interview the day that Charles was shot. And I haven't watched it in a really long time. There's a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to be doing a recap of that, as well as a recap of the entire case prior to March 31st. And I have decided I am going to be in the courtroom for jury selection. I'm trying to figure out flights right now. When I looked a couple weeks ago, they seemed pretty reasonable, and now they seem to have doubled in price. So I'm trying to get that figured out. I really don't want to drive, you guys. It's a 13-hour drive, almost a 14-hour drive, and I really don't want to. So I'm just trying to get my travel stuff figured out. Stephanie K asks, since Chad and Lori came to be married through murder, shouldn't they take that away from her? I feel like when you kill people to get married, you shouldn't have that title. Well, I mean, there's no legal basis for that. And if we want to get legal about it, Lori never did change her name from Vallow to Daybell. So legally, her name is Lori Vallow, which is why she's been referred to as Vallow in all the court proceedings so far. But I think the judge is wise to just, let's give her this one. Who cares? It's really not a big deal. If she wants to be called Daybell, let's call her Daybell. Yeah. So that's my take on it. Yes. Uh, just Linda Lull, the way Lori uses Jesus as a fallback for her lies is disgusting. There's a lot that's disgusting and vile about this human being. In fact, one of my many thoughts that I had this morning as I was getting ready for this is that there is nothing more vile, horrible, disgusting, or evil than participating in the harm of people who are vulnerable, more vulnerable than you, especially the people who you are charged with their protection and their care. I just think there's nothing more horrible and disgusting in this life than filicide. I just can't imagine anything worse than that, except for Lori not only doing that, but then exploiting it to get money. And then also just the way that she's behaved since then. It's just really disgusting. Okay, so we're getting some finally live tweets here from Justin, or live reporting from Justin. I am going to start reading these real quick, and then I'm going to be, again, keeping my eye out for the video to be posted, because we will stream that and watch it together. Justin says, Lori Vallow Daybell pretrial conference is underway. Parties going over jury questionnaire that could include her name. Remember last week, they were discussing whether or not to just put her name on there. I think that's wise, because a lot of people are going to be excluded just from that, because they'll say, okay, yeah, I've heard of this person, and I have an opinion already. So it's okay for the jurors to have heard of Lori. It's not okay for them to have formed an opinion about the case. Judge Boreski asks Lori about the mention of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. She does not object to that being mentioned in the jury questionnaire. That's interesting. There are 21 witnesses listed by the state, according to Judge Boreski. I don't know if we're going to get that list or not. I would really like to see that list. I sort of have some assumptions about who might be on it, but I don't know for sure. And then we are standing by for the live stream. I'm not sure exactly. And again, I tend to log into the wrong profile when I get onto my StreamYard. So in the meantime, Leslie Lashman says, Megan, I think the video she's referring to is on Netflix, Sins of Our Mother, but I could be mistaken, but I have watched it. I'll go back and review that. I don't know if that's the correct video or not, but I'll take a look at it. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. If you could please like the video, I would really appreciate it. It helps the algorithm. It helps the information get out there to the people who want to see it. And I appreciate you being here. If you are not subscribed, I would ask you to please do so. It is the best, easiest, least expensive way to support the channel. If you are so inclined to financially support, I do have a Venmo and a Cash App. My Venmo is the same as all my social media, which is at @third_verse. Here's a question from Carol. If you listen to Lori's version of the shooting of Charles, you know right away that it can't be true if you watch Nate Eaton's timeline of that day with Charles's phone. Yeah, of course. And then she goes on to say, it seems like Charles was killed within 5 minutes of arriving at the house. I'm so glad she's finally being prosecuted for this crime. And I agree with you. I'm glad she's finally being prosecuted. As I was going back over her police interview that day, there are just so many holes in what she has to say. There are questions she can't even competently answer. The detective interviewing her asks, she alleges that there are some text messages that are threatening, and the interviewer says, like, what kind of threats? And she has to wait a full 5 seconds and can't come up with anything on that, which is just crazy to me. So if you had threatening texts, you would absolutely know it. You'd be able to quote them off right now. I can quote threatening texts that I received 10 years ago. Not that I am trying to like be petty and vengeful, but just it's shocking when you receive a threatening text, right? And so some of that is going to stick in your mind. Even if it happened all the time, she at least would be able to say generally, well, he's always threatening to divorce me, or he's always threatening to take JJ away from me, or he's always threatening that I'll never get any money or something like that, right? Um, Yeah, I don't like to second guess or armchair quarterback, you know, police actions and everything because of course, like hindsight 2020, we could ask lots of different questions and say lots of different things. Um, this is an interesting comment because I noticed this too when I was watching this back yesterday. Reflections of Me says when she was in that interview room that day, when she was alone waiting, she was creepily still. I've never seen anyone sit like that and just not move at all. When the detective left the room and Lori was sitting by herself, I've literally never seen her like that. It was very eerie to see her like that because in person she's always on, she's always bubbly, she's always performing, she gestures a lot. Um, she smiles and giggles and laughs a lot. She's always engaging, charming. But to see her sit alone still like that was very, very interesting. And I have some comments and thoughts about that. The live stream is going to be starting here any second. I'm keeping an eye out for it over here. I've got it pulled up. It's just not going yet. So as soon as it does start, I will put that up and we will watch it together so that we can go through the whole hearing together. I don't know how long the delay is on this video. I think the court previously asked, by the way, last Tuesday, the court did rule that there can be a camera in the courtroom. Court TV is going to be the pool camera for the trial. However, the judge gave some instructions that they can have no less than a 30-minute delay, which actually it is, that works out fine. It's great. Basically what I have done in the past for myself anyway is just, watch it and then comment on it later. Since I'm going to be there in the courtroom during at least the first 2 weeks of the trial, I'm going to be going live during breaks and afterwards for recaps. So A to B says, Lori's demeanor was so oddly cheerful on that first body cam video the day Charles was shot. Why wasn't that a bigger red flag to the police? I don't know. That's a good question. But yeah, she was oddly cheerful when she came back from taking JJ to school. She pulls up and you see her laughing, smiling. The thing is, the interesting thing is that Lori she's been successfully charming her whole life. And I think that's just default mode for her. And also, I think she lacks empathy. So she doesn't really know how people with feelings respond in situations like that. And so I think that she doesn't realize that it's inappropriate for her to be laughing and joking and smiling and flirting just after her husband of 14 years has been shot. And so she's just doing what she's always done because she's always gotten what she wanted that way. So I think that's the reason for her behavior. As to why it wasn't more of a red flag to the police, I can't really tell you. Just other than to say, one of the things that I've considered is that police have a huge caseload. And if something is reported to be a self-defense situation and it looks rather plausible, it's possible that they could have let some things slip through and just didn't notice. It'll be interesting to hear the testimony on that. I don't want to speak ill of the officers who were involved. I do think they missed some things. They missed some red flags. But again, I'm not a police officer. I've never had to work that kind of a job or a case. And so I don't know what protocol is. And yeah, and this is a good point too, Michelle, that a person can't be arrested because of a red flag. We do have a high standard. The one thing that does bother me, though, is that Alex did have a criminal record, and surely they would have pulled his criminal record. Surely they would have known that he served time for that, even though, the agreement was that they would qualify him to own a firearm, possess a firearm. So it wasn't illegal for him to have a firearm at this time, but he was a convicted felon at that time. So there's an unanswered question there for me. Justin now says prosecutors are motioning to exclude Vallow Daybell's expert witness. Trina K says the defense needs physical laptops and cell phones impounded by the Chandler Police Department to analyze. The expert has not begun any work on this. That's interesting. So if Lori's expert has not looked at the physical laptops and cell phones, it's kind of tough for that expert to then analyze them. So I don't know how long the delay is on this, but I am checking on the live stream and it is not up yet. So I will keep checking on that. Sam Hughes asks Megan, how have you managed to wrap your whole head around all of this? How are you managing waiting on this trial? Thank you for asking. I've done a lot of work processing. I've done a lot of mental health work, therapy work, journaling. I have a lot of skills and tools that I've learned over the years of how to deal with traumatic situations and how to regulate my emotions. And I have a healthy mindset about this. And the thing is, people continue to get up in arms and angry and disgusted over the things that Lori does. And trust me, I'm angry and disgusted too. And it does come out sideways sometimes. If you saw my Mormon Stories episode last Sunday, where somebody was saying that the book Visions of Glory was not harmful, which for those of you who don't know, Visions of Glory was Lori's second Bible. She carried it around with her. She had it marked and highlighted. She preached from it. She read from it. I wouldn't doubt that she has a copy in jail right now. There's a really harmful part of that book where they discuss justifiable homicide. And I think that's one of the reasons why the children are not with us now. And I got very activated and angry listening to someone continue to defend that book. So it's not that I don't have these emotions come up. It's just that most of the time I'm able to regulate them. I just have developed the skills to do that. It is unimaginable what the family has been through, what Lori has done, what she's put us through. This is not something I ever thought I was going to have to deal with. But I think radically accepting the truth that, the truth of what happened, the truth of all the circumstances has helped me to heal and to process much faster than if I was still stuck in the denial phase of thinking that the religion was healthy or that the family was healthy or that Lori was a good person to begin with. So being able to radically accept things is a skill I've developed over the years. And it's an important one because I think a lot of times when difficult, traumatic, problematic circumstances happen in a person's life, we go through those phases of grief, but it's really easy to get stuck in one of those phases because we don't want to accept the truth or because we have a hard time absorbing the truth. So anyway, that's just a little bit about some of the healing work that I've done. I do one-on-one coaching with people who are going through circumstances similar to this. I do have an e-course about how to defend against manipulative people. So if you're interested in those things, you can visit my website. It's third-verse.com. You can also email me at askmegan with 2 E's, askmegan@gmail.com. So I'm going to just star a couple of these comments to address in a little bit. Deanna, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate your support. I will put it towards my airfare. Just Linda, thanks so much for this. I appreciate it. I've done a lot of work and it's a continued practice. Let me just say that I do have to work hard on it still. It is not easy. And so I'm just going to star some of these so that I can come back to them. Checking on the live stream. It is still not going. And refreshing. Justin. Lori Valdo Lori Vallow Daybell brings up Nate Eaton. She has Nate Eaton as the first person on her witness list. So she's bringing up Nate Eaton and relevant information by potential witnesses that have been interviewed by police. Nate is one of the reporters who's been on this case very early on. I think Justin was the first that has covered it since Charles's death in Arizona. Nate Eaton actually traveled to Hawaii and followed Chad and Lori around trying to get them to comment. Nate Eaton has been there a lot as well. So thank you guys. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Yes, justice for Charles. So checking the live stream, it's still not live. I'm guessing it's going to be a 30-minute delay. And since the hearing started at 10:45, it should just be a couple more minutes now before we go on. And I did want to come on early today just to recap some things because I know people usually have questions about what's going on. Michelle asks if any of Lori's family is there today. So far, nobody has said that anybody has been there. They were not there last week, as far as I know. Janice does not live in Arizona. She lives in Utah, so she would have had to travel for a hearing. But Summer, Lori's sister, does live in the Phoenix area, and so she is able to attend hearings. I just don't know if she will or if she's there this morning, but we'll find out, I guess. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So I have some comments that I've starred that I'll go over. I think it's possible that we're on a 30-minute delay, which means the video should start in just a minute. Squeaky Wheel says the scene was staged. Don't forget, Alex had to get a decent-sized lump on his head afterwards as well. I suspect Lori helped with that, then ran out of the house and sped away. Possible. That's one speculation that I've had as well. Ted says it's so strange that people say the LDS religion didn't play a role in them committing murder. I think that's just denial. That most of the LDS people that I know and have known my whole life are good, wonderful, decent people. But high demand religion leaves the door open for people with mental illness to take things too far. And so the idea that you can get revelation from God, that's 100% a mainstream belief. The idea that evil spirits can inhabit a person, that's 100% mainstream belief. It's in the Bible. The fact that we're in the last days, it's in the name of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They absolutely believe Jesus could come anytime. So now just another thing from Justin here. He says, the issue is if the expert witness will be prepared for trial without the evidence needed. 22 terabytes of evidence was given to Lori's team from her prior defense, and her investigator, Jeff White, emphasizes the size of that data. Lori Vallow Daybell, as always, wants her speedy trial. So it's like, do you want to do a continuance so your expert can be ready to, comment on the evidence, or what? Like, you can't have it both ways, right? So, Cat Lady, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate you so much. Ted's, if you want the opinion of Lori's family members who are LDS, faithful LDS, what they say about the connection of the crimes to the religion is that Chad invented this whole crazy theology that has really nothing to do with the church. I don't think they even make a connection. You can listen to Adam and Rex. Adam is Lori's brother. Rex is my uncle, Lori's uncle, my dad's brother. And they have a podcast called the Silver Linings Podcast. And I'm sure they've commented a lot on their feelings about the religion. And we've appeared on Court TV together a lot of times where they basically say that there's nothing wrong with the religion and that Chad just took it too far, right? So I am checking in on the live stream. It's still not going yet, but I'm going to continue to check on that as I'm looking at comments. It's a bit of a 3-ring circus here to manage all of this. So I appreciate your patience as we just go through some questions and comments. Okay, so thanks for saying this, Leslie Lashman. I will go take a look at that Netflix special, and I'll go back over it. I'll do a little episode for you guys so that we can see. Michelle Salter, this is so kind of you. Do we know what airline you're going to fly, and if we could donate our points or miles to help? American has flights that are direct from here to Phoenix, and they've typically been the least expensive. I think even Southwest is more expensive. So it would be probably one of those two because they have direct flights. Obviously, the cheapest is Frontier or Spirit, but Frontier, usually there's a very, very long layover. They go through Las Vegas, so I'd have to go all the way to Las Vegas and then fly back to Phoenix. The flight times or the travel times are 6 or so hours for Spirit Airlines because they do the same thing, but they're more like 9, 10, 11, 12 hours with Frontier because their flights are so sparse. So anyway, that's it, it's a struggle just trying to figure out the best way to do it. But I appreciate the offer. If you are serious about that offer, you do want to help, I would greatly appreciate it. You can always email me at askmegan with 2 E's at gmail.com. That's probably the best way to talk about that stuff because it would be kind of complicated, right? So I've looked at just buying a one-way ticket just to get there the cheapest way possible and then figuring out getting home later. Again, I'm checking in on the live stream. Justin Lum says, see you in moments. There's a 30-minute delay. Give me just a second.
Been covering this saga, Obi, for 5 years now, a little more than 5 years now. And
Yeah, so they're reporting on this. I'm just going to say I have ads on this channel. So when an ad pops up, I will pause and comment.
Down some things in this next hearing that should last about half hour or so. So thank you guys all for joining us. George, it's basically pre-season for this trial, one of two.
It's kind of ironic that this is the case that kind of started this whole saga, and here we are.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hockley from Sandy Hook Promise. I know that
because of Lori Vallow Daybell's Idaho trial in 2023, where she was convicted of killing her children, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and in the murder conspiracy in the death of Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell's first wife. So there's a lot there. If you've been following this, you know the people we're talking about, but this is going to be some key issues brought up today because of this hearing that's beginning right now, and we'll take you there live, streaming.
001704.
Your Honor, for the record, this Trini K on behalf of the state, and for the record, the next of kin and the victim in the 2022 matter are appearing virtually.
All right.
Good morning, Your Honor. Pamela Hicks and Robert Abernathy as advisory counsel for Ms. Daybell.
Go ahead and announce.
Lori Daybell.
All right, thank you. My courtroom assistant said there's some issue with advisory counsel at the table.
I apologize, Your Honor. I didn't think about the logistics, so I'll just let Ms. Daybell.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask if I could have my investigator up here at the table, because if I needed to ask him something, then I need him available.
Yeah, any side can designate an investigator to sit with them through the trial and through court proceedings. So that you can have, if you can fit 3 chairs there, that's fine. Otherwise, advisory counsel could scoot her chair behind, whatever you think is logistically easier.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. I just received word literally 2 minutes ago that we will be using Judge Kemp's courtroom, and we can use it for the entire first trial, which is in the South Court Tower, which will give us more space as needed. Have the parties, I had my staff drop off the proposed questionnaire on your table this morning.
I'm glad to hear
I
it's going to
know
be in the tower with
You just
more
got it
room.
this morning. You may need some time to read through it. That's my proposed questionnaire. Obviously, there's maybe a lot more questions that either side would like to ask the potential jurors in follow-up. So this is not limiting what would be asked ultimately to the jurors. In addition to this, the questions in this questionnaire, when the potential jurors come in, I always go over the burden of proof. I go over credibility of witnesses in a little more detail, especially as it pertains to how people perceive officer testimony. And some other areas I'll highlight. So I intend on asking more than just what's in this questionnaire, but this questionnaire is intended to get through some of the bigger issues such as pretrial publicity or opinions people may have had or exposure to the case people may have had. And then it has the questions where we may lose additional jurors on the trial schedule, and then victims of crime, views about police officer, and then if they've been charged or a close family member has been charged with a criminal offense, and to explain that. Any comments from the state?
Judge, in terms of publicity, I think my concern would be that when the jurors come in here and start hearing about the case or hearing testimony about the case, they'll hear the names Tylee and JJ, which obviously were more, there was more publicity about those than about Charles Vallow. And so I think if we really want to ensure that the jury is unbiased and has had no pretrial publicity with regards to the defendant, we're going to have to question them as to their knowledge of her other convictions out of Idaho. That was something that was just incredibly all over the media.
I agree, but I think that may happen in individual voir dire. This initial questionnaire, if they recognize the name Vallow or Daybell and they've been exposed to something in the media about it, they should tell us about what they know about it and about whether they know about that other case and whether they know about anything that happened to it about it. So I anticipate losing a number of jurors just based on that. But I agree with you. Some may say they've been exposed to it, but it wouldn't affect their ability to be fair. And in individual voir dire, we can explore those options. I don't want to necessarily taint the whole pool by saying, hey, she's got these convictions in this other state.
And Your Honor, I don't propose we talk about the convictions, but we will hear the names JJ and Tylee in this trial. So that's my concern, is if we don't raise those names, whether or not we put them in the list as people that they may hear.
What I could do is on question 15, where it lists out my name, the court staff, I need to include your name, the attorney's names, the advisory council's names in there. I'll add those. But at the bottom where it says other potential witnesses, I could do a third or another category that says other people that may be referenced but are not going to testify and list those names. That's fine. Is there any in addition to those two?
That would be the only for that. I think the other issue is, of course, the defendant's supplemental 15.2 names.
When was that filed? I haven't seen it.
I filed actually 2 motions to preclude them all and emailed them to your court Sunday.
Okay, maybe that's in my folder that's on my desk. Before we
Defense filed that on the 12th of March.
Okay, before we get to that, let me ask the defendant. Other comments on the proposed questionnaire and the information that we're going to put in there?
I think it's
What's that?
pretty clear.
Okay, do you have any objection to listing Tylee and JJ because they will be mentioned?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look here. Let me ask the state, you have 21 witnesses listed. I need to look at the defense witnesses that were listed. And we're after jury selection. I recognize jury selection could take longer than the initial week that I've set forth, but from April 7th to May 15th, the current screening, that is 20 full days of trial and 2 half days, so essentially 21 days of trial. Do you really think we need to screen that far out? I know you're being overly cautious.
I think, especially given that I'm not positive we'll pick a jury in that first week, I think we should, Your Honor.
All right. Defense have any comment on how we're screened through May 15th?
I think it's plenty of time, Your Honor, myself.
All right, let's deal with a couple things. First, I've received the notice of compliance. That was when the defendant requested the Gilbert video. Does that apply to the second case or this case?
Your Honor, it's an incident that occurred in January. It's not really, it was disclosed because it is mentioned in the DR. The defense had filed a motion for the state to disclose that, and then had brought up again on the 11th that the state had not disclosed it, that there was some YouTube video of that. I have looked for said YouTube video. I have gone through the police report. I don't know what video she's discussing, but we're not aware of any video that hasn't been disclosed. So I'm just providing notice that disclosure is complete as to that police report that is peripherally relevant.
All right. Any comment on that?
Yes, Your Honor. For clarity, is the state proposing that there is no video or that they don't have to give it to me because it's not attached to that DR number?
I think what she said was she's not aware of what video you referenced. So as far as her knowledge, she doesn't have it and doesn't know about it.
So I should go directly to Gilbert Police Department to get it?
Well, last time you were in court, you said your investigator or someone told you about it,
A mitigator
a mitigator.
showed it to me.
If they have that link, why don't they just send it to the state, and that may help the state determine if that's something they've already disclosed.
I will tell you why they won't, because that is my former team and they will not do anything to help my investigator, my paralegal. They won't give us any information that they found. They won't talk to us at all because apparently there was a conflict. So they will not help us. They will not send us anything. They will not email us anything. They will not answer anything that we ask them to. So that has been the response from my former defense team. That's where we are.
All right. Do you know, and maybe your advisory councils can speak to this, did they turn over a file to you or did you have to start from scratch?
No, from what I understand, all they turned over was the 22 terabyte hard drive, and that is it. They didn't turn on any notes, any work product, nothing that they had done to that point. Continue to stand by that today, even though a lot of that information I gave to them, they would not give it back to me.
All right, I'm gonna make an order and it'll be in the minute entry that they turn over a copy of their entire file, including any mitigation information that was gathered to the advisory council. Ms. Hicks, you look like you want to say something.
I don't know.
No, I'm good, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, so I'll do a more detailed order about, they should have turned over a copy of their entire file to advisory council when they withdrew.
So for those who are asking, we can't see who might be attending court, so I don't know if any of her family are there. Notice that she's got her hair down today. She's not wearing the Shih Tzu style. I mean, they can suggest to her that she calm down, but that's probably not going to go well.
All right, so I've read the defendant's disclosures that were filed March 6th and March 12th, as well as the state's motion to preclude. And well, let me start. Have you received any response from the defense, anyone from the defense team since you filed this on March 16th?
Your Honor, last night at 10:30 or so, defendant's investigator sent over a list of the addresses of the witnesses. I did speak with him this morning. I still am unclear if defense will be setting up those interviews or if they will be providing phone numbers to the state to set them up ourselves. As for the expert, again, last night at like 10:30 at night, defense investigator emailed the state and indicated that the defense expert would need to or wanted to obtain the physical laptops and cell phones that the police had impounded so that he could then review them, do his own sub-right or extractions. So obviously the expert hasn't even begun work, let alone they've also requested all impounded items from law enforcement. I'm unclear if they're asking for ones that were impounded in Idaho as part of their investigation or just the ones here. The statements from the investigator appears to be all of them, which would mean the state would have to request Idaho to send those to the investigator. So again, given all of those issues, I don't see how that it would be possible for the state to provide that to the expert prior to this trial beginning, let alone to get a report or an opinion prior to this trial beginning.
All right, let's set aside Dworkin for the time being. So well, let me ask the investigator. What's your name, sir?
Jeff.
Jeff what?
White.
Okay, Mr. White, are you going to be setting up interviews for the state to interview whatever potential witnesses the defendants noticed?
I'm trying to verify, excuse me, sir. I'm trying to verify the phone numbers to be correct. I do have a few of them, but some of them I'm trying to make sure that these are the correct numbers.
Okay.
I did the searches for them, and I have to apologize. I left yesterday, and for some odd reason, my email just did not go through. So,
Your Honor, my understanding is that the state has interviewed every single person on my witness list previously. That's where I got the people from the interviews that they had from the state previously. So I understand that they're allowed to do another interview of them, but they have interviews of every single person that is on my list, with the exception of one,
Which is who?
which is Nate Eaton.
Okay.
And
When
yeah.
you say the state's done the interview, do you mean police or someone from the prosecutor's office?
In discovery, I have interviews with police on every single one of the witnesses that are on my list.
Okay.
So I know that they had their addresses. I know that we were trying to get the addresses to them in the quickest way possible. And where I am at the jail, the communication is very difficult for me to get a hold of my investigator, to get a hold of my paralegal. I'm 23 hours a day locked down. If I don't have Wi-Fi, I don't have a phone. If I don't have battery, I don't have a phone. I don't have access to get to people. So I understand the time constraints, and we're doing the best that we can of getting things answered, getting things put together.
So as a threshold question, your assertion is that all these people that you've listed in your notices have relevant information for trial?
Correct.
And do you know if the police have interviewed these
Well,
people?
Your Honor, the
They may be
first listed
referenced.
person is a reporter. So I'm not really sure the relevance of a reporter.
He's the only one that hasn't been. So that's what I stated.
So, Your Honor, the point is to start with, one, these people, I'm not sure all of them actually have been interviewed. Those that have would have been interviewed 5 years ago. So whether or not their addresses are correct, unclear. It's not the state's responsibility for the defendant to do the defendant's work and find these people. I have an absolute right to do interviews just as the defendant does. So in terms of the witnesses, I think that most of them, as best I can guess, would be character evidence, which would be improper under 405. So depending on what they say, then I need to file motions to preclude or motions in limine for any or all of these witnesses.
All right, so it's premature to address these today. The state's going to have to interview them and find out if, in their opinion, they have relevant information or not. And then if there's a dispute out there as to whether or not they'd be called, I'll have to deal with that as it comes up.
Well-
But if they're unable to be located or interviewed, obviously they won't be called at trial. Mr. Dworkin, if you want him to do extractions, you're not ready for trial. So in order for him to do the work that he's requesting, getting copies of a laptop or a cell phone or whatever the case may be, that's going to take him time to extract and analyze and then prepare a report, months maybe.
I understand that, Your Honor, and I'm hoping he can do it in an expedited manner. I requested him from OPDS on January 14th. He got approved on March 7th
Well,
from OPDS.
you're the one pressing for your speedy trial, so you kind of have to make a decision on, we're set for trial. You want to go to trial or you want to have him do that work that you want? Because I don't think both are going to happen. Even if he got the laptops today, generally those types of things can take weeks, even months to analyze and prepare a report on.
I understand that, and I also understand that I've only been given 10 hours for him from OPDS, right? So if he could spend 10 hours this week getting them ready, then he can give us a report with the best that he can do.
Well, the report's already late technically, but if it were allowed, first of all, it's going to take time to coordinate him getting let's start here. Specifically, what are you requesting? Because the state wasn't clear whether you were requesting items here impounded by a particular police department or items that may be impounded in Idaho?
Well, I'm sure that my investigator would like to have all of those things done, and I realize that we're on a time constraint, and I would be only concerned with one item, which is at Chandler Police Department, which was Charles, my husband's phone. Charles Vallow's phone. And I would like a copy of the extraction that they took from it. The digital forensic extraction from Chandler Police could be given to him immediately. That would be very helpful.
Wasn't that already disclosed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Was that part of the initial terabyte?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Everything that I have is on a 22 terabyte. So if hard drive. So if I give that away, I can't do my work.
Well, can't you make copies of files out of it?
22 terabytes.
I understand that.
Okay.
So what's your proposal?
I'll take it up.
I mean, if you have all that information in a file, I'm not saying you have to copy the whole 22 terabytes, but there's a file in there somewhere that's the Cellbrite extraction already for that requested item that's been in defense possession for however long now.
I'll take it up to Lori.
So I'm happy to make an order, but again, if he's not done with that information you want, are you still wanting to proceed to trial at the end of this month?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
At Granger, we're for the ones who pay attention to every little detail.
It's late under the rules of evidence and rules of disclosure. And secondly, depending on what he says, the state would have to have an opportunity to consult with an expert as well. So even if he got something done, it could still be precluded, but I'll give him the opportunity to do whatever it is that you think he needs to do to analyze that. But that information's been in defense possession for months, if not over a year.
More than a year, Your Honor.
Yeah.
And he was just approved by OPDS last week, Your Honor.
I thought you said he was approved. You applied in January.
I applied for him in January and last Friday, he got approved.
Again, this is one of those things where you have to weigh your options on whether it's worth it to get a continuance so you can have your defense do the work that you want done on your defense. But if you're telling me you don't want to do that.
I would like to do that, but my situation in my housing department precludes me from doing that.
From asking for a continuance?
No, from getting things done in an effective and quick manner.
Okay. All right, well, so you're telling me you don't want a continuance because any information he has at this point could be precluded as being untimely.
I understand that is the rule, and I understand how unfair and prejudicial that would be to me.
Okay. So I guess I'm gonna have to cross the bridge on whether these notice defense witnesses are even able to be located and interviewed before I make a decision on whether they have relevant information and can be called at trial.
Obviously, Your Honor, we have a little over a week to try to interview these people, so I will
understand.
file something at the end of next week indicating who I've been able to reach and interview and ask to preclude everyone else.
All right.
They also obviously ask to preclude them regardless,
Right.
based upon what they may say.
All right. What else do we need to address today then?
Your Honor, the only other motion that we did not address last week was the state 609 motion. I presume the defendant will likely testify, so I don't know if we wanted to address that now.
Are you prepared to address that now?
No.
I generally will, I guess I'll advise the defendant now that if you choose to testify, it's likely that the jury would hear about the convictions. But at your request, they could be sanitized, meaning that they would only hear about the fact that you have convictions as opposed to what the nature of the conviction are, but that would be up to you whether you want that information out or not. And then the jury would receive a limiting instruction that the existence of those convictions is only to be used for the purposes of determining credibility. So you should be aware of that when you make a decision on whether you want to testify or not. Oh, if you do want to testify, it will be question and answer, meaning you need to write out all your questions that you want to be asked and have one of your advisory counsels ask those questions to you when you're on the witness stand.
Right.
Okay, so you can't take the witness stand and just give a narrative. It'll be question and answer.
So am I supposed to reply to the 609? Is that what you're saying? And ask for it to be sanitized if I want that?
We can talk about that when we actually have a 609 hearing, but yeah, you can make that request orally. You don't have to do a written response. I indicated last time for your opening statement and closing argument and questioning witnesses that you'll pretty much be limited to the podium. We'll be in a different courtroom apparently for trial, but it'll be set up very similarly. Either your investigator or one of your advisory counsels will approach witnesses with exhibits if you have to show a witness an exhibit. So I'll have to do the same limitations on the state. The state would be confined pretty much to the area of the podium, and the state would have someone assist in approaching witnesses with exhibits and that sort of thing. All right.
I have some motions that I'd like to file. I've had a really hard time getting, my paralegal
copies
is
for the
very
state?
busy. I don't have copies.
All right, we'll make copies and give them to the state, and then we'll file them, and depending on what they are, I'll rule on them as the response and replies come in, or we may have to address them depending on what they are. So plan on that questionnaire going out. I think we said next Thursday, the 20th, will be sent out to potential jurors for the first batch of jurors, and then the responses would be cut off on the 26th.
Judge is going to be sent out Monday the 24th and will end on Monday the 27th.
All right. And then I'll meet with the parties on the 31st to go over those remote responses. So that'll be the 31st at 10:30 a.m. Then again, I'll just reiterate on April 1. Are we having we're not having walk-ins, Izzy, until the 1st?
Correct.
Okay, and then on the 1st, we will meet again, and for the rest of that week, we'll likely be meeting at 10:30 and continuing with jury selection every day until we get enough jurors. Hopefully we get enough the first week. If we have to, we'll go into the second week.
Yeah.
Judge, I know that I'd given you a date that I was going to need to be dark on. I'm going to put out there, since I obviously don't know when we will get the jury picked. I do have some witnesses that are flying in, so I may have some days where I may need to end a little early or whatnot to try to accommodate some witness schedules. But I'll keep the court updated once we get a jury picked.
I think we'll have a good idea by about day 2 of jury selection, whether we're going to need to go into the next week or not. That reminds me, though, is I would like the parties to plan on, we're going to have a much better idea after about the second week of trial and the first trial, how the second trial will unfold as far as how many jurors we might need. But I would like the parties to plan on doing another remote questionnaire with a much larger pool for the second trial and meeting on Friday, May 30th. I'm just giving you a heads up as far as this is concerned. And then for scheduling purposes, so everyone knows, I'm planning on probably going Monday through Friday of the week of June 2nd, as well as Monday through Friday, the week of June 9th, to try to get as much done as we can. And then there's going to be some dark days there toward the end of June, but we need to get it done by July 4th.
Your Honor, when are you planning on starting that trial?
So jury selection would be the starting May 30th. All right, anything else from the state for today? If you want to stick around, we'll get you copies of those motions.
I do, Your Honor. I guess the only other thing is for the questionnaire, are we going to put in the defendant's 15.2 witness list?
I'll put in those names preliminarily. It doesn't hurt, just in case anyone is called from that list. And if anyone knows any of those people, I will put that in actually. Anything else from the defense?
So I'm unclear on where we stand with the video that I requested.
The state says they don't know what video you're talking about. They've disclosed everything they have. So I'm going to make an order to your prior team to give you whatever that is. If you have a link in that information, you can forward it to the state so the state can see if that's something they've already disclosed or if that's something Gilbert didn't give them, or on the other hand, since it was told to you secondhand or showed to you secondhand, whether it's something different than what you thought it was. I don't know. So I'll make an order that they hand over all those things to you, so maybe you can figure that out. But at this point, the state says they've disclosed everything that they have and everything that they're aware of.
And in that order, they'll give it to my advisory council, or
Who do you want me to, I was gonna say give it to your advisory council. Do you want a more narrowed order? Maybe any mitigation work that was collected, or do you want a broad order that's basically everything in their possession?
Well, it would be nice if they could turn over everything in their possession that we worked on.
I was just thinking
together.
it would be easier for you maybe to find that needle in a haystack if it was a more narrow order.
Well, she knows what the link is and she could just give it to us, and we asked for her to do that, and
What's that?
the attorney said, no, she can't do that. She can't give you any.
What's that mitigator's name?
My mitigator's name, Pamela.
On your prior.
Pamela Kearney.
Do you know how do you spell Kearney?
Cerny.
All right, I'll make a specific reference to that.
And do we need an order, Your Honor, to pick up my husband's phone at Chandler Police so that Bonnie can do the extraction?
Well, you already have that extraction in your discovery. What's the state's position on Lonnie Dworkin meeting someone at, you said Chandler, right? Chandler
Yes, at
Police
Chandler Police
Department to do another extraction.
Your Honor, obviously the state and defense have always had stipulations so that should something happen to the device while it's in the possession of Mr. Dworkin, that there are now no issues with chain of custody or anything else. So the state would have to draw up a
Can have the ability to just do the extraction on site.
on site where? At Chandler?
At Chandler.
I don't think the police departments allow anyone to go in there and conduct their work in the police department.
Okay. All right, so to maintain the chain of custody, the state can draw up an agreement, and if the defendant signs that agreement, then Mr. Dworkin could pick up that phone.
That's perfect. Logistically, how's that gonna happen?
She's gonna forward that to your investigator, and I guess he'll have to come down and have you sign it.
Okay.
All right. Be at recess.
Okay, guys,
All
so a
right.
lot to
If
unpack.
you're just joining us, you are
I'm
watching
going to
the
go ahead and
Lori
turn this
Vallow
off.
Daybell trial coverage. That was
I may go back and watch Nate's commentary a little bit later, but for now, I'd like to go ahead and answer some of the questions that you have, respond to some of the things that happened in that hearing. It always wears me out to listen to Lori. That's always tough for me. It just wears me out. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to have to do some deep breathing and meditation, maybe go on a long walk. Listening to the changes in her vocal inflections, going between that really baby voice and her very insistent complaining, etc. So, for those of you who are just joining us, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here. Please like the episode if you have a second. I appreciate it. And thanks, Irish Jen, for modding. I appreciate you being here. Yeah, I'm going to need, the judge and I both are going to need, I don't know, a spa day after this whole thing is over. Okay. So just to recap the things that we talked about in this pretrial conference, which is supposed to be the final conference before her trial begins, although now we've heard that we are going to have, well, I guess there will be a meeting on the 31st at 10:30 a.m. to go over the remote responses from the juries. And then starting April 1st, the jury will be questioned or voir dired in person. I find it hilarious that April Fool's Day is the first day that people will have to see Lori in court. Just a little funny there. So I was grateful to hear that the judge did say that they're going to be holding the trial in Judge Kemp's courtroom, which is the South Court Tower. There will be much more space. In this particular court, there's only 36 seats. I talked with the clerk's office yesterday to see if I could get a family pass. And what I was basically told is that the defense has never been given special treatment. Since I'm related to the defense, I doubt I'll be able to get a special pass. So I'm going to probably have to just be there early to line up like everybody else, which means the potential of having to line up with Summer and maybe Janice and other family members that might be there. So that should be really interesting. I will have to think about that a little bit. And then they talked about the names on the questionnaire, on the jury questionnaire. So they talked about whether or not to put on Lori Vallow Daybell's name. I think that's a good idea because I think that would exclude some people automatically, or some people would say, yeah, I don't know about the case yet, but let me Google it real quick because I really don't want to be on this jury for how many ever 6 weeks. And then I don't know how many seats will be in the new courtroom. But yes, I did make this point that I am related to Charles by marriage for sure. I made that point. I actually left a voicemail with the prosecutor's office just to see. So we'll see. I haven't heard back. Obviously, they're pretty busy. So, oh, I've got my beautiful human chainmail on already. I am bully proof. Not to say that I don't have my moments, that I do get tripped up from every once in a while, but hey, thank you so much for this, Sheila Bo Bila super sticker. Appreciate you. And then they asked about the possibility of having Tylee and JJ's names on the questionnaire as well. So it's an interesting question whether or not to put the kids' names on there, because I think that, again, later on in the hearing, the judge noted that if Lori does decide to testify, that it's very likely that her prior convictions will come up, that the court will hear the names of her children. That could be bad for her. So there was discussion about whether to include the children's names as well. Yes, I'm related to Colby. He can bring support people with him. I don't know if he's talked to the prosecution. I would think that he'd be able to get that he'd be able to get a pass for being Charles's family because Charles was his stepfather. So, and I think this is true too. If you know Lori's name, you know Tylee and JJ's names probably. Thank you for this, Lynn Kay. I really appreciate you. And this is, I agree with this too. Lori wants to have her cake and eat it too. The judge basically said, no, you can't. So there are 21 witnesses on the state's list. And prosecutor Trina Kay did say that some of them are flying in. So she might need to end court early on a couple days in order to accommodate the comings and goings. If you guys paid attention to the Idaho trials at all, you know that sometimes they had to change up the witness order, or they had to leave, excuse everyone from court early in order to accommodate people traveling in to testify. So we are going to have to be flexible with that. And that's why I say I don't really have plans beyond that third week yet, because the fourth week, court will be in recess the entire week. The prosecutor's not available for some of that week, and the judge is not available for some of that week. That's also the week before my daughter's wedding, so it's convenient. I'm glad we're not going to be in court that week because I will need that whole week. And so we'll just have to see where we are after that happens as to my travel plans and being in court or not. Rest assured, whether I'm in court or not, I will be covering the entire thing. I will be commenting on the entire thing. I will be on YouTube every single day. Rest assured for that. So then they talked about the video that Lori continues to request. Some of you have said in the comments that it's the video that was seen in the Netflix special. I will go through that here a little bit later today. I will find the video that they're talking about, and I will go I'll probably go live, or I'll make a video about it and comment on that. Okay. Yeah, I laughed when she said this too. It's 10 hours, so he can do it this week and write me a report. I'm sure he has nothing else to do but serve Lori. Cyberpunk Central, not only do I have a daughter getting married, but she gets married, and then just a few days later, my second grandchild is due to be born. So I'm a grandmother 2 times over. So I'm just actually a little bit over a year, about 14 months younger than Lori. So anyway, they brought up this video. I agree with you, Northwest. Thank you for commenting this. It's a golden snitch she's chasing. It's not relevant. She's never going to catch it. It doesn't matter. There's really no reason to have it on, and that's what I'm going to comment on later today. But basically, Lori complained, saying that her former team won't help her. This is where she got really angry and activated, because she says they're not helping me at all. Apparently, there was some kind of an incident that happened, some kind of a disagreement, and she was, complaining about them not providing information that they had. And so the judge is actually going to write an order for her former team to please provide all the information they have. It's like, kids, please play nice. Just give her what she's asking for. And she specifically said that it was a video that her mitigation specialist showed her, and her mitigation specialist is Pamela Kearney. So for those of you who don't know, a mitigation specialist is someone who is supposed to interview people and come up with evidence that would help a jury to give a defendant a lesser sentence, basically saying that, like, there are mitigating factors for the reason she committed this crime, things like possible abuse in her past history. I was interviewed by the mitigation specialist for her trial in Idaho, and my dad called me and said, hey, the mitigator wanted to know if I could give your phone number out. And I said, sure, but she's not going to like what I have to say. I'm not going to give any information that is going to be favorable to Lori, to basically say, oh no, she shouldn't have as harsh a sentence because of whatever factors, or that I see any redeeming qualities in her. I basically said, I do have mixed feelings about it because she's my cousin, and I at one time really loved her, but not now. Like, lock her up and throw away the key, please and thank you. So I don't know if this is true, Diana Storm. I've heard this as a rumor that she cussed out her former attorneys, but I don't know if that's true or not. So anyway, the judge is going to order them to turn over that video if they have it, or he's going to order them to turn over all the evidence that they have. And he says, do you want me to make it narrower so it's just the info from the mitigation specialist, which that's what I would have signed up for, because I don't want to have to comb through 22 terabytes to try and find that video. But Lori, of course, make them give me everything. So, and then the judge asked the prosecution if they received any information about the expert witness, and they said at 10:30 p.m. last night, the prosecution finally received an email with the addresses of the witnesses and the request that the expert wanted the physical devices. So he ostensibly hadn't begun investigating, although I would guess that he probably went ahead and already reviewed the Cellbrite extraction. If I'm speculating, and I am here, then I would say that probably what is happening is that the expert wants to do their own extraction from the actual device. And that's probably why they're asking for that. But again, as some people pointed out in comments, doesn't really need to do his own extraction. That Cellbrite extraction gets done very professionally, very competently. So anyway, where we landed on that is that they're very at the very end, the judge said that if the expert wants to do their own cell extraction, fine. They're going to put protections in place to make sure nothing happens to that device while it's in possession of the expert. Lori's going to have to sign a document for that to that effect. They'll try to get that done this week so that he can start his extraction and start reviewing everything. Then there was a discussion about Nate Eaton as a witness. Lori says she requested him as a witness on January 4th and that he was approved on March 7th as a witness. And then, they've asked her about her timing of, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you filed this? And she complained. She said, my housing precludes me. My housing situation precludes me from getting this done in a timely manner. Sorry for the snark and the Lori imitation. But basically she says it's unfair and prejudicial, but she also doesn't want a continuance. Like, she wants everything done right now. She doesn't want a continuance. She wants people to do what she wants them to do, but not give them the time to do it. And so basically, she forgoes that because she doesn't want a continuance. She wants her speedy trial. So then the judge talked to her about testifying, warned her that her previous convictions could come in, warned her that she needs to have a list of questions that advisory council will ask her. She can't just present a narrative on the stand. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that she's going to have to follow the rules of all of that. And then again, she's going to be cross-examined. I guarantee you the prosecution is going to bring in information about, here's what I would do if I was a prosecutor and Lori was on the stand, asking her questions about what happened that day. I would probably say, something to the effect of just bringing up the point that of the 5 people that were in the house that day, she is the only one who is still alive. Sit with that, jury. Like, let me just ask you, Ms. Vallow, Ms. Daybell, of all the people who were in the house that day, who is still here to testify on what actually happened? Yeah, so that's my feeling about that. Then the prosecutor asked about the 609 hearing, which I think that's what's going to happen on the 31st. They're going to send out the first jury questionnaires on the 24th. They'll end sending out questionnaires on the 27th. And then on the 31st is when they'll meet to talk about the remote responses to those jury questionnaires. That'll be 10:30 a.m. On the 31st. And I hope to be there for that. So that's what I'm trying to work out right now. I know that there's American has a couple of flights that are direct flights that leave very, very early from San Antonio that morning. So those are the flights that I'm trying to get on, I guess, just because that'll be the most advantageous for my kids and for my personal schedule. So that's what I'm going to go for, I think. And they're hoping to have the second trial start on, I think he said, did he say April 30th is when they're hoping to start jury selection for that second trial, and to be finished with it by July 4th, because the judge has some conferences that he has to attend, some trainings that he has to attend, he mentioned last time. And then the prosecution asked if they were going to address the 15.2 witness list. And the judge said that there would be a preliminary hearing on that, which he's going to. So we're going to see We're going to see a lot come out of the court in the coming couple of weeks right before the trial, because Lori filed some more motions today. We should see those in a couple of days probably. And then we're going to have to see the judge's written orders about everything that was discussed today. So, of course, I'm going to continue to keep up with those and report on them for you. I've got some questions to answer that are starred here. Again, thank you for being here. Please hit the like. Please subscribe if you haven't already, because if you subscribe and hit your notifications and you turn all your notifications on for YouTube, you will get a notification 30 minutes before I go live. And I've tried to get better about scheduling my lives in advance rather than just going live impromptu, because I realized that if I schedule them about an hour in advance, then those of you with notifications on will get a notification 30 minutes before I go live, and then another notification when I do actually go live. So that's what's going to happen. So yes, you're right. Northwest, May 30th. Okay, so I'm just going to go back and she's probably reading Chad's books over and over with those 23 hours. Okay, I just lost my camera because the internal temperature was too hot. So let me just go back to my other camera real quick. Give me 1 second. And I might have to refresh here to get that camera to come back on. I apologize, you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing. Give me 1 second. I'm going to reboot and I'll be out for like 5 seconds and then it'll come back on. So here we go. Okay, I hope it did not kick. Okay, I've got 500. Okay, got you guys. Okay. I just didn't want, I wanted to make sure it didn't kick all you guys out. So this is my, this is my regular camera, not my super fancy one, but that's okay. I do realize that when I'm live, I have about an hour and 30 minutes before that camera kicks out. So I apologize for you guys, for the little delay there. So, Shraddha Niche asks, why do you think the cops did not take Charles' word for his wife being unwell? Then the same department let Alex go free. I think they did take his word for her not being well. And he did ask for a mental health evaluation. She did submit herself to a mental health evaluation. But remember, when that happens, their only criteria for them letting someone go is if they are a danger to themselves or someone else. And I'm very certain that in a 1-hour interview, that Lori could charm someone enough to say, look, my husband is just crazy. He's mad at me because we're getting divorced. He's made up all these stories about me. None of them are true. I'm obviously not going to harm anyone. I'm not going to harm myself. This is all ridiculous. Can you just let me go? I'm pretty sure that that's what happened. When she says she passed with flying colors, all that means is that she charmed them into letting her go. That's really all that means. Yes, and they were different. They were different police departments, and I'm not sure that they even communicated with each other. They usually don't communicate with each other on minor matters like that. And she did. Yeah, it has to be immediate danger. So then Raque asks, I just cannot forget Janice's comment when she was told about Lori's crazy religious shenanigans. At least she's not hurting anybody, and here we are. Yes, exactly. And I think that was kind of the family's attitude towards everything that Lori did, was like, Lori's just going to do her thing and we should just leave her alone and not cross her because she gets super unpleasant if we do. And let's just not deal with it. Sweeping things under the rug, etc. That's kind of what I think happened. And then Sam Hughes says, thank you for your honest answer. I'm so glad you have these tools to help you out. A lot of people forget about the family involved. And I just highlighted that because I just wanted to say, people do forget about the number of victims that there are in this case. And when I say victim, I'm not trying to say that our status is elevated to the people that she harmed. But you have aunts and uncles and cousins and siblings and nieces and nephews, and all of these people that have been affected by this case that are family members that are related to Lori and that are related to Charles. It's a large number of people. I'm guessing that it's probably at least 100. And one of the very first interviews that I did about Lori's case back when she was on trial, one of the interviewers said to me, "I'm of the opinion that murderers kill their families too. How do you feel about what she's done to your family?" And I had a really hard time with that question. I think I answered it in the moment, but after that interview was over, I had to sit with that for a long time because it's true. Our family is never going to be the same after this. Not that it was like super joy, happy, rainbow, fun, functional family. There's a lot of dysfunction and a lot of, hurtful, harmful things that went on in our family for a very, very long time. So not to put our family up and say like it was such a wonderful place to be, great people to hang out with. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what little we did have of healthiness has all been damaged and marred and affected by this case. There's been a lot of fallout. There've been a lot of arguments and hurt feelings and people not talking to each other anymore and relationships lost and relationships changed forever because of this case. The ripple effect of these crimes is going to go on for a really long time. And it was a tsunami at first, and now it's little ripples, but they're still there. And there still is a lot of loss to deal with. So I appreciate the acknowledgement of the fact that you guys understand that. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Then Michelle Bohart says the detective that took over the investigation spoke to Charles's brother, and this was brought up about Alex's past. I don't think the average person understands the law. That's true. And also, I don't think the average person understands how law enforcement works and understands how the court works. And I didn't before this case. I didn't understand the idea that like we're not going to see all of the evidence that the prosecution has. They're going to bring forth only the evidence that presents their particular narrative about the case and what is the most likely evidence to convict Lori, not that we're going to find out everything. And then after Lori's first trial, there were a lot of things that were sealed from the trial that's not ever going to be available, that I'm things I'm never going to know, things I'm never going to be able to see. And I just have to radically accept that there are going to be unanswered questions. And I just have to make peace with the fact that so far, Tylee and JJ and Tammy have received justice with the conviction of the two people that harmed them the most. I think Alex got off easy, but I just want to point out that it's difficult to accept when there are things that are just questions that are never going to be answered. That's hard, but radically accepting it helps me to then just be able to move forward with my life. And not that I ever feel like I'm going to have closure, because it will never be closed. There will always be waves of grief that come from time to time. But I have learned to sit with grief. I've learned to live with grief. It's not easy, and it will never be okay. But grief always teaches me what has been important to me, and that's what I think is important. Yeah. You're talking about the phone call from Lori's sister, Summer. Summer and Janice appeared on 2020. So Lori's sister and Lori's mom. And they did defend her. They stood up for her. They said, I don't think Lori would ever hurt her kids. And actually, the way that it went was Janice said, I don't see her. Do you? And looked over at Summer. And then Summer said, I don't see it. Sort of parroting what mom said. So again, it's the family narrative, but they did stand up for her, and it was heartbreaking to listen to that. And I agree with this, Northwest. Alex's previous charge would be in NCIC, even if conviction didn't go on his record. And he was convicted in Texas, I believe. Is that right? It might have been Arizona, though. I don't remember for sure. I'll have to go back and look. Sorry. I believe that they, at the very least, should have held Alex that day. Yeah, I don't know. Deanna is asking, I wonder if Charles's sons will attend the trial. After all, Lori lied to them about their father's death. I don't know. The people who are staying away from the trial that are family members, I 100% understand, because I didn't want to go in person to her first trial either. So, I understand why they don't want to be there. It's not mentally healthy for a lot of people. It drains you. It takes a lot out of you. So, this is kind of a good point here, Squeaky Wheel. I think Tylee backing up their story is the only reason the cops let it slide. Little did Tylee know she essentially sealed her and JJ's fate that day. Well, I can't put that on her. I believe that in those 45 minutes between the time that Lori and Tylee and JJ left the house and the time that they returned, and the police were there, I believe in that 45 minutes that Lori manipulated Tylee to adopt Lori's narrative about what happened that morning. And I believe that she molded and swayed Tylee's narrative and Tylee's testimony to be what Lori wanted it to be. So, I believe that that's what happened. And I think Tylee, as problematic as her relationship with Lori was, at the end of the day, that's her mom, and she's a teenager, and she, wanted her mom's approval and wanted to, get her needs met. And that's perfectly acceptable and normal for a teenager to want to please their parent. And I think that Tylee had been fed the narrative all her life that Charles didn't like her. And I think that's why their relationship was problematic. So I have a great deal of compassion for Tylee, because I had a difficult relationship with my mom also. And I can't imagine what Tylee had to go through and suffer. It must have been horrific. Cyberpunk says some of her witnesses have already been denied. No, so far, none of Lori's witnesses have been denied. What was in question was whether or not they were going to allow the expert to testify. It kind of sounds like they are now going to allow that to go forward. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that, data extraction and everything that's going to take place this coming week. Her co-counsel is allowed to assist Lori as much as Lori wants them to. Her paralegal or her investigator is the one who's charged with helping her set up appointments and helping her draft and file motions. And her co-counsel is basically at her disposal to speak with her about what her defense is going to be, and to advise her about the arguments that she can and cannot make based on the law. And so they're basically, for that 1 hour a day that she's allowed to have phone access and internet, I'm pretty sure that they're with her every single day for that hour. Thank you so much, Kara J, for the super sticker. If I didn't thank you already, I appreciate you. Yes, she has been this snarky in the past, definitely. But I think I said, after her Dateline interview, she's always had that type of personality. She's always been that combative, that defensive, but she was better at keeping it at a lower volume, lower pressure, keeping it more covert, keeping it more under wraps. I think that interview with Keith was the most activated I've ever seen her. And when you compare that interview with the interview that she does the day that Charles is shot, it's a big difference in her behavior and her demeanor. And that's one of the things I'm going to go over when I recap that video later this week. So this is a beautiful thought, Nikki Peaches. Thank you for saying this. I hope his sons are doing well too. Thank you for this. Advisory counsel cannot argue for her in court. She has to make her own arguments, but they can advise her. Like, she can check with them. She can, ask a question and then listen to the witness, and then she can check with counsel. But it looks like Lori still doesn't know how to operate the mute button on that mic. So it'll be interesting to see. Oh, goodness. Cyberpunk Central, people have speculated about this. Like, was there a bat? Was the bat even there? Did they even have an altercation? I do believe that there was a bat. I do believe that Tylee had her bat. But I also believe she might have been coached in advance to say, look, Charles is coming over tomorrow. He's really angry. There might be an argument. Just be prepared if something happens. So I think Tylee probably already had in her mind, like, hey, I'm going to protect myself and JJ and my mom. And probably she did bring the bat out. Probably there was some kind of an altercation that happened. And so I think that part of the story was true. So, and I've just got a couple more questions, guys, and then I will sign off for the day and I'm going to go have a relaxing lunch with my partner, I think. So Cyberpunk again says, what's the ultimate positive outcome of Lori expects to receive from all this? I don't get it. Well, the ultimate positive outcome for Lori is that this is the Lori show. She gets to have a whole season of the Lori show, and said the second season is going to be Brandon's trial. So she's eating this up. She wants this trial. She never would plead guilty. She wouldn't want to be seen negatively in the public view. And so she is, she's milking her very last opportunities to be in the spotlight before she has to continue to be in jail for the rest of her life and never see the light of day again. I mean, yeah, she'll have yard time, I guess, but she will never be outside of a prison for the rest of her life. So she's, she's taking advantage of this. Absolutely. And I agree with this, Northwest. If Lori was concerned, then you arrange to meet Charles at a public place or have Charles pick up JJ. Yes, that's what a reasonable person would do, but Lori's not a reasonable person. And yes, I believe, allegedly, they were planning this thing for a very long time. They already had in their minds what they were going to do. So she wouldn't have made a rational person's plan because they were already planning to ambush Charles, I believe, allegedly. M. Morgan says, replay listener, I would love to see a list book of your coping skills, Megan Connor, because witnessing them in action are so therapeutic. Thank you, Morgan. I do have a book out, but I have taken it out of publication because I'm going to revise it. But if you're interested in some of my healing tools, I do have a podcast, The Midlife Revolution. It's on my YouTube channel. There is a playlist on my YouTube channel with all of my Midlife Revolution episodes, as well as some of the lives that I've done about healing. I have several episodes on there, shorter episodes about the coping strategies that I use and some of the skills that I developed in a series called How to Heal. So that is on a playlist on my YouTube channel. I recommend it. And I would love to get feedback on that if you find it helpful. So I appreciate that. Paisley Dreams asks, why does she want Charles's phone? It will be evidence. She was saying she could kill him because he was a zombie. Yes, that evidence will be there. Also, I believe allegedly that Lori tampered with Charles's phone. She didn't turn it into police until long after she was questioned by police. She had it that whole time, and there's been some allegations that she and other family members helped to erase, delete, alter texts and emails that were on his phone. So I don't know if maybe she wants to confirm whether or not her alterations remained. But that's what I suspect, allegedly, that's why she would want Charles's phone. Northwest says the judge needs a different term other than dark for this trial. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know about light and dark. He doesn't know about zombies. He hasn't been exposed to the other, trial coverage or documents or any of that. The judges have to go in impartially. So I don't think that he knows about that. And even if he did, it's just a common term to say, but I agree with you. Like, it is a little bit, ooh, dark. Don't say that. Just say you're not going to be in court. You know what I mean? So I get it. Michelle Salter says, sidebar question. Do we know if the estate of Charles will sue the police department? I have no idea. I kind of doubt it because I think Kay is the one who's in charge probably of that estate. she probably wants to put this behind her and be done with it. I think when, fingers crossed, Lori gets convicted of this crime, I think that's going to be some closure for Kate, and hopefully seeing Charles receive justice is going to be the end of it for her and Larry. I can't imagine everything that they've been through this whole time. It just, if I've been through a little bit, they've been to hell and back probably 6 or 7 times at least with all of this. Justine asks, do you know if your family members watch Dateline? If so, would they tell her how she appeared and maybe to tone it down? I have no idea. I suspect that's probably really difficult for Janice to watch her daughter in these shenanigans. So, but I have no idea if they've watched it or not. If they did and they wanted to give her advice, how do you think that's going to be received? Lori's not going to take advice from anybody. She believes she knows better than everyone. She believes she's doing exactly the right things and that God is telling her to do all these things. And she believes that she's Jesus's favorite. So how are you going to tell Jesus's favorite to tone it down or to do something differently? I just don't think that would go over well. Janice Smith says she really does believe that she's being persecuted by the government, a common religious delusion in the U.S. It's nonsense, of course. The government doesn't care what you believe. They care what you do. And I agree wholeheartedly, Jana. Thank you for saying that. No commentary needed. So Lynn K, I don't know if I've shown this already, but thank you for the super sticker. If I've already shown it, I apologize for being repetitive. Yeah, I thought she was ready for trial weeks ago. She keeps saying she's ready because she doesn't want to delay the trial. She wants her speedy trial. I don't think there's a chance that Chad could see her. He's in solitary confinement. He's on death row. He only gets an hour out, and I'm sure that it's probably, to go outside or whatever. I think she wants Charles to see her, or Chad. Sorry. I think she wants Chad to see her, but I think the chances of that are very slim and nothing. And yeah, she needs to stop referring to Charles as her husband. They were separated. Obviously, they were not on good terms. She participated allegedly in his unaliving. Anyway, they never did get divorced, so he's technically not an ex. Yeah, it is jargon. So, I agree with this, Ravina. Good to see you here. If she testifies, it opens up to cross-examination. She's a fool. She won't be able to keep that story straight. That's so true. I don't think she has a good handle on what that's going to mean for her. Barbara Miller, thanks for all your commentary today. It appears that you are an attorney or at least legal adjacent, so I appreciate that because I am in the dark as far as that's concerned. Sorry, not in the dark. I'm unaware of a lot of the legal things here. Although I've done a lot of research, it's not possible for me to know all of these things. So I really do appreciate your chiming in here. I'm sure people know this, but Lori does not have to listen to advisory council if she doesn't want to. It's obvious she doesn't want to. Exactly, 100%. She wants to do her own thing. She thinks she's smarter than everyone, including the attorneys. And then Rhonda Gaines asks, do you think Lori is so activated because she is understanding that her old manipulations don't work anymore? I've read that sociopaths always find ruin. And I agree with this. We tend as human beings to do what has worked for us, to repeat those behaviors that have worked for us in the past. I think that's how Lori's operating. And I think it's disappointing to her that her manipulation, when her manipulations don't work, I think it is disappointing and activating to her. I think that it just blows her mind that what has worked so well for her in the past isn't working anymore. And I think we saw no better example of that than in the Dateline interview when she realized that her charms were not working on Keith Morrison. And I think he handled it beautifully. He knew when to be silent and he knew when to push forward. And getting her to answer the question of, were you there when your children died? I think that was a pivotal moment in that interview. And I think it was dumb of her to do that interview. And maybe we can get some weigh in on this, Barbara Miller. But absolutely, I think the prosecution can use what was said in that interview against her. in court. I don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing. Allegedly, this is all my opinion, you guys. I'm not a legal expert. I'm just weighing in on what I know about Lori, what I know about the family. And Tom Evans, it's so good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. I'm looking forward to seeing you too. And I agree, we are going to see the real Lori on display all day, every day in court. And it remains to be seen whether or not she is going to be able to keep her anger and her rage under wraps. I think we're going to see her contempt for everyone. And I think that is not going to go over well with the jury. She will not be a sympathetic figure. They are not going to believe her crazy narratives. And I think it's going to be pretty wild. So, Sunny Meadow, this is a wild speculation. Wouldn't it be wild if Lori ended up in the same facility as Ruby or Jody? It would be crazy. It would be crazy. But if that happened, they probably would all get together and talk about how evil children are and how wonderful Visions of Glory is. And they would just have such a wonderful time stroking each other's egos. This is a good point, Barbara Brown. They used Jodi Arias's interview against her, so I expect they'll do the same with Lori since both are in Arizona. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for being here with me this morning. Thank you for going over this with me. As soon as I get word about these motions that have been filed, I will go live again to go over them. And again, in the coming couple of weeks that we have until trial starts, I am going to be doing a recap of the entire case, a recap of where we are so far in Arizona, as well as going over some of the police interview footage like I did with Tylee's interview. I'm going to be doing that with Lori's and with Alex's as well. And I have lots to say about that now that I've rewatched it several years later. Okay. Thanks, Barbara. Spent from 22 to 65 years old working in the legal community. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thanks for all of your input. That's very, very helpful. June Johnson, she wants to be in the Idaho prison. From what I understand, because it's a little more cushy, their prison is different than jail. Right now, she's in jail. She has less privileges. She has less access to the things that she wants for entertainment, as far as like books and workout rooms and things like that. Not only that, but from what I understand, allegedly, she doesn't like the population in the Arizona prison or Arizona jail. I think the Idaho jail are people more like her, if I want to just put it that way. So anyway, good point for this as well. Ruby Frankie and Chad Daybell are both from Springville, Utah. I think this is true that she's going to have to serve her Idaho prison time before she serves time for this trial. I don't know that for sure, but she's serving 3 consecutive life sentences in Idaho. So I don't know exactly. So yes, I've heard that Maricopa County Jail is rough. Bexar County Jail, where I live, is rough. It is full of some not nice people. I don't think there will be much of a difference, Chelsea, on how Lori will respond to female versus male prosecutor. I suspect that she will be snarky and rude either way. She's just not going to like to be questioned. She's not going to like it when her official narrative is questioned. So there's that. So yes, this is true. She's technically still in the custody of the Idaho Department of Corrections. She's on loan to the Arizona jail. So again, I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to go do some self-care. I hope you do too. Go do some deep breathing and meditation after listening to Lori's crazy. Please take care of yourselves, and please subscribe and hit your notifications so you know when I'm going to go live again and when I'm going to do more of a recap. Take care and have a wonderful day, beautiful humans. I will see you again soon.